Look at page 6 in your yellow booklet. We're going to begin with a parak of Kehilla. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai Roi Lo Achzor, Binos Teshe Yabitzeini, Almei Menuchos Yinaleni, V'nafshi Shovei, Yancheini B'magli Tzedek, V'leman Shemo, Gam Ki Yelech B'gei Talmavet, Lo Yirara, Ki Ato Imadi, Shivtecha Mishantecha, Heima Yenachamoni, Taroch Lefanai Shulchan, Neged Zoreroi, Nishanta Vashem Ben Roshi, Kol Sirivaya, Achto V'chesed Yedifoni, Kol Yemei Chayoi, V'shavti B'veis Adonai, Liorech Yomi. The Psalm of David, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He brings me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yes, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil. You are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. I shall dwell in the house of Hashem forever. I'm going to share some words, followed by a few other speakers. Adam will be our final speaker. And after the Kelmole, we're going to walk outside to the back. All the non-Kohanim will walk outside to the back. And we're going to escort Sharon. Sharon is right outside the building, allowing Kohanim to be inside. We're going to escort her down right behind her house all the way until West Home. At that point, she's going to be going to the airport and she'll be buried in New York tomorrow. Sometimes people study a book, a Musar Sefer, seeking inspiration, seeking guidance, hoping for life lessons. And of course, there's value in that sort of exercise. Other times, however, we encounter people, extraordinary people, who, in the vernacular, they're referred to as walking Musar Svarim. They lead lives that are so exemplary and so true to their neshama, to their soul, that getting to know them, studying their lives yields even more inspiration, life lessons, and guidance. What's the point of this service? Does Sharon, our heroine, need to hear this? Her neshama is present, and she can hear us. She knows who she was, and what she accomplished. Adam, our hero, the man who stood by her side and was her hero, the man who never gave up. Does he need to hear this? The answer, of course, is that this is for us. We need to hear this. And it's an opportunity for all of us to learn from Sharon. Tradition has it that at this moment, while Sharon is lying nearby, before her body is buried and her soul ascends, it's her midot, her character, the fruit of her spiritual efforts. That inspiration is available to us all. It's accessible. It's hanging in the air, waiting for us to grab it. We just have to reach out for it. And so I encourage you, as you listen today, to think, what can I do? How can I connect? What can I learn from her? And that, of course, will be the greatest Eloi Neshama for her that will help her on her journey. Funerals, eulogies, are often a time of exaggeration and hyperbole. But for those of us who knew Sharon, you know that nothing that anyone will say today is going to be overstated. There's no room for embellishment because she truly was extraordinary. I never knew her before she got sick. Only been here for 9 years. I didn't know her when she was a vibrant, active person. What a marvelous friend and person she must have been. Yesterday, I spoke to the woman who was running the Tahara, preparing her for burial. And I explained to her, you need to know who this woman, who Sharon was. An extraordinary tzaddikas. We all know she married Adam, and a year later, she was diagnosed with a debilitating degenerative illness. And she suffered true yisurin for so long. All that time, she maintained a good attitude, sense of humor, and a commitment to her learning that I find both enviable and inspiring. For a person to give in and say, I don't have koach, I don't have the strength, I can't persevere, that's the norm. But for a person to push through life's challenges, that's exceptional. Even though she lost the ability to control most of her body, she stayed alert, optimistic, and observant. What do we do with our free time? What do we do when we're feeling down? What do we do when we're not feeling well? Sharon channeled all of that into her learning, her hasamada, her diligence. It was remarkable. I used to say she's the biggest masmid in Westwood, probably in LA. She channeled it into her Yiddishkeit, into her Judaism, into her relationship with God. And she developed closer relationships with her peers. She was a dear friend. She wasn't just a taker, she was a giver of herself to so many beloved friends. Closeness in physical space is measured by proximity. Closeness in spirituality is measured by similarity. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, Asay ritzono ritzoncha. You should make God's will your will. When a person like Sharon does that, not just his will in terms of how she conducted her life, the mitzvot that she observed, the character that she developed, but as a semel, as a paragon of emunah and bitachon, person makes God's will her will when things are not going her way. That's godless. She cared about others in a remarkable way. Shandy would be learning with her, and she would say, Shandy, you sound like you have a cold. It's so hard to have a cold. I feel so bad for you that you have a cold. Talk about nosei ba'ol, caring for others. And the next day she would call up and say, how are you feeling? That's not normal. She had a remarkable, kind way with her words. She had a way of making you feel like you were the extraordinary one. Sharon had such an important place in our shul. Second Megillah readings, second shofar blowings, every Shabbaton until she wasn't able to attend anymore, playing a major role. Attendance at Shiurim, Zuma was of course a godsend for her. And she, through her passion for her friends, for the community, and for mitzvot, and really for her Torah learning, was a rallying point for the shul, for our community, and we did indeed rally around her. She hasn't been here in years, but her folding chair is right there in the back, because we never gave up on her. She was a friend and a chavrusa. She wasn't a chesed case. And she cultivated incredible and beautiful and meaningful and deep relationships with so many of us here today. Adam, I hope you'll forgive me. I want to say a little bit about you and your relationship with Sharon. I am in awe. I've been in awe for years. I probably don't tell you that often enough. We're all in awe. I've often thought, what would I do in Adam's shoes? Married for such a short time, taking on a commitment that you never anticipated, never asked for, never wished for. I'm not saying you never complained, but I never heard it. What you've done these past number of years is remarkable and extraordinary. Monday afternoon, right around now, 49 hours ago, Shane and I went to visit Sharon. Some of you might be aware of this. During the last 9 years or so, Shane's been learning Navi once a week. They got through most of Navi and Rishonim for sure. Then during the past year, Sharon asked Shane, can we please start learning the Haftorah, the weekly Haftorah instead of continuing with Navi? And so they did, every single week. They studied the weekly Haftorah. And so on Monday afternoon, while I was saying to Kehilla, Shane, you read through the Haftorah out loud at Sharon's bedside. She read to her the first pasuk of this week's Haftorah from Yeshaya Nun Aleph. Anochi, Anochi, hu menachemchem. I am he who consoles you. Mi'at. Who are you, Vatiri, that you should fear man? Umin Adam Chatzir Yunasein. And the last pasuk she learned with her, Yeshaya Nun Beis, and you can't make this stuff up. Lo b'chipazon teitzeyu. For not with haste shall you go forth. U'v'minusa lo selechun. And not in a flurry of flight shall you go. Ki holech lefnechem Hashem. U'me'asfchem Elohei Yisrael. Hashem goes before you, and your rear God is the God of Israel. Hashem has gathered Sharon to himself. He took his time. It wasn't in a flurry that she left. But finally, her time is up. Her Yisurin, her suffering is over. Her soul is finally free of the shackles of her body. And she is glorious with Hashem as Hashem goes before her. And at the same time, Hashem is her rear guard. She is wrapped in God's embrace. Hashem is reunited with her, and she is reunited with him. And she leaves us an unmatched legacy. What we learn from her is a schos, a merit for her. And it will, of course, help her neshama continue its unparalleled journey. I'd like to ask Rabbi Brander to share some words.
Shus the Mara de Asra, Shus Akala Kadosh Azeh, this holy crowd. Hesped, the eulogy, is for the glory of the Nifteres, of the one who passes on, and for the inspiration of the living. Yikra de Shechvi, Yikra de Chayei. There was a Sharon before the doctors. There was a beautiful Sharon with a red car, the larger than life spirit, Hamidas HaSimcha, a tremendous, unbelievable sense of resplendent joy. There was a Sharon who wanted fame, glitz, and glamour, a Sharon who made inroads, who made commercials, who was so talented, incredibly alive. But along the way, Sharon, I'm going to speak to her. Along the way, you woke up your neshama and you built a rich and powerful Jewish life. The Sharon who decided on December 31st, 2000, at the Rabbi Riedi Shabbaton, sponsored by the Westwood Kehilla, sponsored by the Greenbirds, to become a Shomer HaShabbos, who gave up on those dreams. But Sharon, Sivi Achaya Rus, you made it. You got it. You have the fame, the glitz, and the glory. You will live on forever in the place of nitzchius, of eternity in our hearts. Your neshama flies ever higher. You have touched us in the deepest place. This is our goodbye. Your tortured body was a repository to a heilige, holy neshama. You achieved utter greatness, and you schlepped us along the way. You came here as an aspiring actress with the Midas HaSimcha, with a big smile and an unbelievable amount of resilience. Everyone remembers your smile. I spoke to Rabbi Willig Shlita from 19 years ago. I mentioned your name. He said, the smiley one, right? I spoke to my mother, whom Sharon was friendly with. She was the one who always smiled, right? You found, Sharon, a beautiful Westwood Kehilla, the righteous woman, the Neshei Chayil of the Westwood Kehilla, the incredible friends, the Baalei Chesed, who learned with you, who laughed with you, who cried with you, who ate with you, who figured out a way to transport you. To the incredible members of the Westwood Kehilla, those who are here and those that are not, Ashreichem v'ashrei chelkechem. You are incredible. And then in June of 2004, you found true gold in your Ish Chayil, in your Adam. We were all waiting for the little Sharon and Adams. You had dreams of a family, and all too soon you received the diagnosis. Just 2 years, a Shivasar B'Tammuz, the fast of the broken luchos. And for the next 15 years of your life, the script had to be rewritten. You went through suffering and indignity, and your Adam was with you. You made your husband into a tzaddik, make no mistakes. And you made yourself into a tzaddikess. You found true gold as a husband, and you found true gold on the inside. You achieved glamour, glitz, and fame in the world that's kulo emes. Sharon, you were always fun and full of simcha. We spoke a lot. On May 28th, 2021, you left a message. I have now recovered. The procedure that I had was 4 hours. Even Gilligan didn't last that long. I hope to talk to you. Good Shabbos to everyone that comes to your home and to your shul. Be well. On the same day, May 28th, a year earlier, 2020, you wished me a Chag Sameach in a sing-song. And then you said, that really wasn't singing, Rabbi, don't worry. You were sharp. You sent me incredibly funny emails. The more I get to know certain people, the more I understand why Noah only let animals come on board. August 22nd, 2008, when I came back from one of my trips in Eretz Yisrael and my wife was not home, just making sure you're getting fed this Shabbos. I think your wife and family are home by now, but if not, I'll have enough food for you. It's not all bean sprouts. In fact, none is. Sharon. You would often speak of your conversations with the doctors who warned her of her lost cognitive function. And you would respond that even with half a brain, I'm doing pretty good, no, doctor? In February 2008, you had a subject on the email, Dear Rabbi Brander, 2 words. And then in the email itself, howdy neighbor. Okay, more than 2 now. We were just approved for an apartment around the corner from the shul. I can walk to you. Very exciting. Adam will see it Sunday for the first time. I'm sure he'll like it. Was this a long time coming or not, Sharon? All her incredibly creative messages. August 10th, 2012. I'm so happy to hear your message, believe it or not. All right, tag, you're it. You had an incredible memory. You remembered everybody's birthday. Always. You had a whole list of inside jokes. Somehow she remembered that I used to speak a lot about Akdamos, one of the poems on Shavuos. May 14th, 2021, in the most labored speech, have a wonderful yontif, you and Batya. I'll be thinking of you doing Akdamos. May 28th, 2020, I'm thinking of Breakfast of Champions and Akdamas. Hope you have a good davening. May 30th, 2017, Chag Sameach, and I'll think about you during Akdamos. What can I say? All right, will be well, bye. You asked me how my mother was. You always wanted to be in the know. On June 18th, 2021, hey, Rabbi, have a wonderful Shabbaton with Rabbi Klatsko. I never told her. She always knew what was going on. It should be a lot of fun. And enjoy your guest, Elaine. She always wanted to be in the know. She was never detached. Courage. On June 11th, she had a very difficult day. She had that diagnosis. Her message was, I just got home from the doctor. I had a very hard day. And then within half a second, so good Shabbos to you, and Batya, and be well. It always was pivoted to the other. Her 48-page book, you should read it again and again and again. My wife commented, she's in the East Coast, Sharon, you didn't roll over and play dead. You fought and fought. Torah? My wife commented, you were like in the kollel. Adam was supporting a kollelnik. You loved Torah and personalities of Torah. You zoomed into all the classes, far and wide. You learned with Rebbe and Shandy, with Andy, with Jean. You had correspondences with anyone. You were fearless. You knew the most random Torah. She used to ask me questions. What was the name of the wife of Potiphar? Oh, I forgot the name. And then like an email a few minutes later, Zulicha. I knew it. From the hospital bed in your home, you went to Rabbi Katz, and to Rabbi Shapiro, and to Rabbi Gladstein, and to Rabbi Gordon. and you would correspond with them. Generosity. You always wanted to make sure that the Purim checks got to me on time. You would send checks to support the shul, our kollel. Limited support, but you always were with us. A thinking person. A thinking person. In 2008, you sent me an email, so I am doing some positive things. I do try and stay on the positive road, but some days I don't know. If we learn that the gates of tears are always open, how do we persevere in the interim, waiting for a request to be answered? Just something I've been pondering. Last 2 years ago, Emet is in Bereshis bara Elokim, the end of the words. We know the cure precedes the malady. So how do I find the refuah? Where does one go before the beginning? August 19, 2008. Rabbi Brander, I was moved and motivated from the class last night. Do all challenges fall into that category? Physical challenges included? Or are they a different kettle of fish? You were so real, Sharon. There was one question I was not allowed to ask her. And when I made a mistake, and I would occasionally slip, I would say, "How are you feeling?" She gave it to me. She was always in pain, and she didn't pretend. Abalas chesed, abalas emunah, a personality of kindness and faith. The Gemara says chesed is greater than charity, because chesed you do with your body, the other one is just with the money. What happened when your body stopped working, Sharon? You did chesed with your mouth and your mind. You did chesed with your mouth. You lifted everybody up. You know, you were a singer till the very end. Ashira la Hashem b'chayai, azamra lelokai be'odi. I will sing to Hashem with my very life. I will sing beautiful songs with my very essence. Your name was Rus. One of your names was Rus. Chazal tell us Rus means Rivo la Kadosh Baruch Hu b'shiros b'sishpachos. You know, some people, you speak to them, and after you speak to them, you're so drained, you need to take a shower and a big nap. When you speak to Sharon, when you spoke to Sharon, you walk out with chiyus, with life. Rivo la Kadosh Baruch Hu b'shiros b'sishpachos. She was a personality who gave others koach, even though she had no koach herself. You can lift us up with a single word. The Gemara tells us that there was a man by the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan was very handsome, he was gorgeous. And he was visiting his student, Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer was sick and poor. He was in a dark room. And Rabbi Yochanan opened up the door and he exposed his arm, and there was a radiant light. And Rabbi Eliezer began to cry. And Rabbi Yochanan said to Rabbi Eliezer, "Why are you crying? Are you crying because you are suffering?" He said, "No." "Are you crying because you are poor?" "No." "Are you crying because you lost children?" "No." "So why are you crying?" And Rabbi Eliezer said, "I am crying because I see how beautiful you are. And I'm just thinking to myself, eventually that beauty is going to end up in the ground. Vai lahai shufra de bali ba'ara. Woe to that beauty that's going to end up in the ground." Whereupon Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Eliezer began to cry. And they began to cry and cry. Al davadai kabachina. You know, we all know how much Sharon suffered. And as Rabbi Stewart said so beautifully, her neshama is soaring. We know that Sharon had such an unbelievable neshama. She loved life. She wanted more life. It seems to me, maybe I'm wrong, it seems to me as she got further along in her illness, the less her body was functioning, the more her neshama grew, the less questions she began to ask about why, because she understood what she had accomplished. She understood what she had accomplished. We knew that we were in the presence of greatness. Everybody here understood what a great person Sharon was. We understood that this was a tzadekes yisod olam. We understood that this was a special matana. All the chesed we did for her, she repaid in spades. We understood what an unbelievable person she was. But the greatest sadness is she's in a great place and she's growing and going. But now all that beauty, we can no longer tap into it in the same way. That is what Rabbi Elazar said to Rabbi Yochanan. The beauty of Rabbi Yochanan, we will eventually no longer have. Sharon, we cry because we could no longer access your incredible beauty in the same way. Your light, your sparkle, your care, your ascendant words, your heilige lichtige neshama. Your unbelievably special husband, Adam, should have a nechama. We ask for mechila for the times that we were not responsive. May we merit to take on one aspect of your incredible personality to bring in aliyas neshama to you and to us. Bila hamaves lanetzach, umacha Hashem dimma meyal kol panim, ulo sosifu ledava od. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu destroy death. And may we wipe away, Hashem, wipe away tears. There should be no longer sadness. May we meet in Yerushalayim, Ira Kodesh, Be'ezras Hashem. All the Heilig and Neshama is coming together. B'mheira b'yameinu. Amen.
David and Jean are not here, unfortunately. I suggested to David, everyone knows David and Jean are dear and close friends of Sharon and Adam. Perhaps you'd like to write something, a eulogy that can be read. I'd ask Josh Horwat to share David's words.
Parents took my kids on a vacation, and fortunately they're away right now. They sent me this to write, to read to you right now. I'll just say that if there was any other person who had any other person or people who had claim on their time besides my family and my kids, it would be Sharon and Anna. This is his speech. Sharon was the happiest person I knew. She had a natural affinity for him, long before her MS diagnosis. And as much as MS ravaged her body, it didn't diminish her natural preference to cheerfulness. Right before your eyes, you saw Sharon lose her ability to walk. To move her body, to read, to move her left arm, her bouts of nausea, her incapacitating and painful headaches, her struggles with speech. As you witnessed this long and mostly unrelenting downward spiral of her MS over the past 7 years, the more you were flabbergasted at her humor, teasing, and good cheer while you were with her. When she could concentrate, she would listen to shiurim from her favorite rabbis. She would watch TV game shows and kibitz contestants on trivia questions. When she had guests, she would tell jokes, take sides in arguments, weigh in on the taste of the food, and above all, express gratitude for the tiniest thing you did for her, like handing her a piece of challah. Some might say she was distracting herself as much as she could from the constant discomfort in her back, her legs, her eyes, her head. But I don't think so. I think it was just her nature to be captivated by curiosity, by humor, by joy. And the paradox in all of this was that Sharon wasn't a Pollyanna. She learned early on from trying experimental drug therapies that her rare type of MS was not susceptible to a miracle remission. In fact, the disappointment from each of these failures was sometimes overwhelming, and she came to shun suggestions that she try this or that new drug. She didn't have illusions about her condition, and you learned to quit asking her how she was, because she didn't want to answer. She didn't want to go there. As remarkable and inspiring as was Sharon's courage, was Adam's dedication and attentiveness to her. He was God's gift to Sharon. The MS diagnosis came 1 year after they were married. In the early years of the disease, when Sharon could go out, Adam would take her to shul, to Shabbatons, birthday parties, Shabbos meals, restaurants. Adam didn't let the wheelchair slow her down much, but he needed to lift her. But he now needed to lift her, to rearrange her on the couch, to bathe her, to move her into and out of the wheelchair. Back pain became a constant. When she could no longer go out, he brought people to their apartment. Shabbos dinners at the Goldmans were as good as the best in town. Adam made kiddush with his homemade grape juice and combined a smorgasbord of food that was irresistible. Sharon talked to the guests from the couch. As she continued to deteriorate, Adam's investment in her grew. He was a closet engineer. He was constantly figuring out how to make her life more comfortable, spending weeks experimenting with ways to enable her to bathe without falling over in the tub, to get her into and out of a car, to reduce her susceptibility to bed sores, to enable her to eat and drink without making a mess, to interact with friends on email, to view her shiurim. He was endlessly innovative. Adam always called her sweetheart. Even when he was exhausted, frustrated, embittered, depressed, Adam would always make Sharon know he loved her. For Jean and I believe the others who spent time with Sharon, Sharon made us feel how lucky we are, how trivial are our challenges, how blessed is our life, how much gratitude to Hashem we should feel, and how far we had to go to equal the patience, strength, and drive that she had. Jean and I don't know what we will do without her. In her greatly diminished capacity, Sharon did way more for us than we ever did for her.
I'd like to ask Marna Myers to share some thoughts and reflections.
We gotta speak, right, ladies? Okay. So I speak for the women. I speak to the men, rabbis. We all know who Sharon was. I want you to know Sharon knew who she was. One thing. When Sharon first became ill, she said, well, you know how she talks, okay? So I'm not going to say everything she said. But she said, now what am I going to do? What's my purpose? I can't stand it. And I said, okay, we're going to talk about it. We're going to figure it out. And on that day, we figured out her good qualities, her abilities. And what we figured out was she knew how to talk to people. She knew how to listen. and she was going to help people. I call her the involuntary Sudeikis. She said, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I said, I know. And then it went on. We went to mikveh together. First we went swimming when she could. Then we went to mikveh together so that she wouldn't drown. I'm a swimmer. And I encourage everyone who even thinks that they can't make it because they don't feel so good. Sharon and I went to mikveh together until she couldn't walk. Okay? She said, I don't know what a Kadosh Baruch Hu wants from me, but I'm going to do everything. I'm just going to do it. Time passed. We all know, and I have to thank all the women and all the men for all the help that we gave to Sharon. Every single person who sits here helped tremendously. We could not have done it individually. It was too much of a burden. We're too small for that. Then when she got her most recent diagnosis, she could barely talk, and she said, Kadosh Baruch Hu, enough, enough. What are you going to tell me now, Myrna? And I said, you're not going to like it. And she said, okay, I'm listening. And I said, you know, I think a Kadosh Baruch Hu is just going to make you a complete Sudeikis. You stuck with it. And she said, I don't want it, I don't want it. I said, I know. You have no choice. We have no choice. He's in charge. And she said, okay then, okay. And that was it. A lot of people wrote to me. A lot of people wrote me notes to speak with her. Adam and I read all of those notes. Rabbi Grander, we read your note, we read your voicemail to her. Everyone reached out. We did what we could. We just need to remember her as how wonderful she is. And when we feel slacking, never mind. Put that extra effort in because, my gosh, we know the effort that she put in. Oh.
Good reason to take this off. Hi, I'm Liz Harris, and Sharon is one of my oldest friends here in Los Angeles. We met 38 years ago. I was 31, Sharon was 22. We hung out with the same crowd, and back then we had the same dreams. We were dreamers who wanted to create, to act, to sing, to dance. I wasn't sure that we'd remain friends because there was such a large gap in our ages. And truthfully, I found her immature. But I'm really not sure she was the mature one. Somehow we remained friends, and I watched her grow from a young starling to a fully mature woman. In 1994, when an earthquake shook everything off my shelves and out of my refrigerator, the doorbell rang shortly afterwards. There stood Sharon in her bathrobe. We got in bed, we huddled together, and wondered, what just happened? It was immediately after that that Sharon began going to temple. First once a week, then twice, and then almost every night she was studying one class or another. What are you doing? I asked. What's going on here? I mean, we had always gone to the high holidays together, but I was stymied. After hearing these two rabbis today, I have to say, I understand. She found good rabbis. When I got married 21 years ago, this Friday, Sharon was a bridesmaid at my wedding, along with 4 other close friends. She and another friend caught the wedding bouquet, but the other friend let go of it when she saw that Sharon meant business. And it worked. because it was not much longer that she and Adam got married. And I'm so happy she did, because as much as I can sit here and glorify Sharon, as you all are, Adam is a true hero to me. And he was a hero to her. And even though it certainly wasn't easy at times, you always came through. When I told Adam a few days ago to tell her to let go, he said there could be a miracle. Adam, just tell her that she can let go now. Sharon wants you to live your life and have a good one. And he said, she is my life. Well, if you've ever taken care of someone with disability or even without disability, you know how extremely difficult it is. You are a true hero. I don't know what the Hebrew word for man of valor is, but you are. I'm grateful to Sharon for a number of things, but mostly because she made me a better person. I credit her Jewish learning and her love of Torah because she became the highest Ashes Chayil I have ever met. She would never speak Lashon Hara about anybody. She always tried to make you feel good, feel better, even though she was suffering. Wherever she went, which was really only to the hospital or the dentist these last few years, she managed to tell jokes and make people laugh. Sharon didn't pity herself at all, even though she had good reason to. She loved life, even with just the use of one arm. When I would speak to Sharon every Friday night before Shabbat, she would pray for me and for my problems. She made me a better person. She lifted me up in prayer. We had a bond that was everlasting. And as I told her in her hospital bed last week, I hope you'll keep an eye on me. She joins her mother, her father, and friends who have gone before her. If you remember the movie It's a Wonderful Life, starring Jimmy Stewart, there's an angel in that movie named Clarence, a bit of a bumbler who is sent down from heaven so he can do a mitzvah and earn his wings. So he helps Jimmy Stewart at his lowest point, and he earns his wings. Sharon has earned her wings in this lifetime 100 times over. And though we all will miss her, I am sure that in heaven, she's going to have a very large audience.
I met Sharon on the same day Adam did. Adam and I had been friends from the Jewish community in Florida, and he asked me my opinion. And I knew right away he had a nice Jewish girl and a good match. She was really in love with her community here in Los Angeles, and Adam liked it here. It was a no-brainer that he would move to LA. I got to know Sharon a little bit in Florida, and I met her mom. I visited her once in the hospital. After Adam and Sharon got married, and I was married, I usually speak to the wife of my friends. And slowly but surely, Sharon and I became close. And then my friendship with her grew because I moved here also. We spent a few Shabbases together, New Year's, birthdays, listening to music, looking at her pictures, and playing games. We always had fun. We're both actresses. I've had small roles, mostly walk-ons, but I truly enjoyed watching Sharon playing her part in National Lampoon movie. And I had fun with her because she would direct me on some scenes and comedy I did. She was extremely talented. Sharon had made a lot of connections waiting tables, as many actresses do. She had star quality. And I always admired how she always had that pretty accessory and how fantastic she looked, even with only a little bit of makeup. We laughed a lot, almost every time we spoke. I have to say that she really is a role model for me. I don't know what I'm going to do without her. She was my life coach. Sharon kept up her sense of humor in the face of so many obstacles. I don't know how she did it. She told me a few jokes she had told even on the operating table and in doctors' offices that had the doctors hysterical laughing. I thought of it last night that she had them in stitches. I'm sure she would have liked my observation. Sharon was addicted to Torah classes. And like me, but Sharon studied like no one I ever saw. She really was an inspiration. I know how much she loved Rabbi Brander's class, and she loved Rabbi Stern, and I'm sure now Rabbi Stewart. Rabbi Stern is amazing. He wrote me that he'll be at the Kavora tomorrow in New York. I can't believe she's not here, but I feel she is somehow, and I will miss her. David Sachs said last week that when someone leaves, it's normal to cry, as when someone is going on a long trip, but the relationship doesn't end. Adam, your relationship with Sharon will never end. That's why we're admonished not to mourn too much. She cared about me and it was mutual. She told me a few weeks ago she had Yenim Machla. I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to. She never lost her emunah. She told God to help her, but her belief in Hashem was ironclad. I'm sure she's headed right to Gan Eden, to a beautiful place. I couldn't see her the last few weeks while dealing with health issues myself. If I believed it was going to come to this, I would have taken the risk. I didn't want to believe it. I even bought her a ticket for a virtual event with someone on the cast of Frasier, a show she really loves. Last night, Sharon, I read all the emails you sent me since 2011, and you always ended it. I love you, Tova. I love you too, Sharon, and I will carry you with me always.
I wrote this stuff, but the rabbi said about half of it, so we're not going to do that. Easier for me to just say this because this is our life. But it's just a little easier for me to read it, so I don't have to be as emotional about things. I'll talk into the mic. The first time I encountered that giant smile of Sharon was over the phone. She had this way of speaking that you could just hear it. It was early 2004. I was in Florida, and I had recently become interested in looking at California girls. There was this Orthodox site called Frumster. My boss told me we would be working a Passover program in La Jolla, so I was interested in meeting a person or two while out here. But Sharon wasn't going to wait that long. She had a mother in Boca Raton, so 2 weeks later, after watching the Super Bowl over the phone together, she was on a red eye, and I picked her up at Fort Lauderdale Airport. Very early, and we drove to a nearby pier in Dana Beach, where we could watch the sunrise. It was still dark in the parking lot. I drove over a curb. Next thing you know, we're swarmed by police cars. So here she is, all bleary, flying all night, disorientated by the humidity, and this guy she doesn't really know gets her into this crazy situation, but typical Sharon, instead of freaking out and demanding I take her to her mother or something, She just continued to the date, and we had our first sunrise together. We had a fantastic week. As we got closer, every day was more amazing. And when she left, I felt this void and asked her to fly back. A few weeks later, she took another red eye. On that same pier, I gave her my mother's ring. Next time I saw her was at Passover program. And a few weeks right after Shavuos, the evening of the Kobe and Shaq elimination game, was our wedding. Then she found out what she had gotten herself into. The first few months, we lived in my Florida condo. The night that George Bush got reelected, we drove my Mitsubishi Eclipse cross country to California. Our first stop was Burgers in Boca with Sharon's mom, Estelle, who interestingly asked why Sharon was speaking funny. We didn't pay it any mind, but in retrospect, it might have been the very beginning of the MS, something slightly off that only a mother could hear. The following Passover, we went on a little hike down in Joshua Tree. Sharon felt faint. We figured she was pregnant as we had been trying very hard and happily drove back up to Los Angeles. But she wasn't pregnant, and after some tests was diagnosed with MS. That was the first time I heard her cry. She said, "You don't understand. I'm not crying for me. I'm crying for you." These last few weeks, I've been crying for her. After all she had been through, the cancer was devastating, and Tuesday morning was our last sunrise together. She died exactly at 8. Thank you.
El Malei Rachamim, Shoichin V'Amraimim, Hamitzei Minucha Nichoino, Alakanefei Ashtina B'maloi Zekedoshim Uteorim Kizoyaraki Amazirim Es Nishmas Tzivya Chayaruth Baschanoch She'alecha li'or lamo Oy bavor Shemishbachto nodvu Tzako b'yaras karas nishmasa Migan Eden Tehei Minuchaso Zochin Balarachamim Yasirel B'Seiser Kinafav Li'olamim V'yitziror Mitzrachayim Es Nishmaso Adayno Yunach Aloso V'tonuach Al Mishkavo V'shalom V'nomar Amen. Follow Adam out this way. the Malava and escort her on her way.